Fantastic. So Jay is actually a colleague of mine from Bangalore. So welcome. Must be very late there. So sorry. Jay, have you frozen? Oh.
It looks like she's frozen, but yeah, sometimes these things happen. Maybe she can reconnect in a second.
Yeah. Hi, Grace. I can.
Hey.
Sorry.
Yes, you're
Fantastic.
back. Amazing.
And you're back.
Yes.
No problem at all. So welcome, and I believe you're going to be talking about Kotlin as a great example of functional programming. Is that right?
Yes, right.
Great, fantastic. If you could share your screen, I'll add it to the stream, and then we can get going.
Sure. Minute.
And again, if anyone has any questions for Jayashree, you can add them to the Slack channel or to Slido, and I will ask them afterwards. Fantastic. Let me add that there and get you going.
Okay. Thanks, Grace. And hi, everyone. Thanks for joining. Today, my topic is why Kotlin is becoming a favorite example of functional programming for me. I am Jayashree S Kumar. I am an IBM Java Classes Library developer. I have extensively worked on IBM Java's testing side. Recently, I moved on to development. I'm interested in innovations as well. While I'm not at work, all these things keep me busy. And let's get started. So I'm a what, why, and how person, and that's how I've structured this talk as well. In my agenda, like you'll see, like what, why, and how about Kotlin and the functional programming languages. And some of my favorite concepts, I'll be introducing them to you with the code, with my conclusion. To begin with, what is Kotlin? I'm sure most of you would have already known it, but for the some who don't know, this is a very brief introduction. Kotlin is a statically typed programming, general purpose programming language, which was created by JetBrains, but now it's open sourced. It can compile down to Java bytecodes. That, along with its 100% interoperability with Java, is what I feel has led to its popularity. It also compiles down to JavaScript, which can be run on your browser or your Node.js, and also the native side. There is lots of things happening in Kotlin. You know, this is a new language in the modern language, but yeah, that's for another time. Kotlin gives you the best blend of both operating or object-oriented and functional programming language. So that is why this language has some substance to it. What is functional programming language? Different people have different definitions for it, but functional programming is simply programming with functions. But yeah, it's a type of declarative type of programming language where you focus on what to solve rather than our imperative type where you see how it could be solved. Functional programming actually treats most of your functions as pure mathematical equations. It uses immutable data. It is easy to write, use, and test these programs. One such function would be like, if 1 + 2 is equal to 3 always, then you could easily replace the expression with 3 without having any other repercussions. That is like no side effects in pure functions. The famous Hello World program in Kotlin. So you would see functions are the first-class citizens here. You don't need to have a class defined to define your function. They have done away with the semicolons. It's optional. And yeah, they've removed the new key. I, being a Java developer, I'm comparing Kotlin mostly to Java language. So the types are on your right-hand side, and it has a very strong type inference. Even if you don't mention the type, the compiler is smart enough to understand it. There are two types of variables in Kotlin. One is val, which is immutable or read-only, while there is another var, which is your traditional variables. By immutable, I say, if I try to give name is equal to hi again, then I'll get a compiler error saying val cannot be reassigned. This is basic. Next, now that we know what Kotlin is, why should you give Kotlin your time? Why should you even think about functional programming? Functional programming has existed since 1958, since Lisp has come out. And there were lots of new famous languages like Haskell, Scala, OCaml. But why do you think that we have started looking into functional programming all over again since 6 years ago? My thoughts, some of my thoughts are that because of the availability of the highly parallel multi-core architectures that we have in our hand now, which calls for high concurrency, where parallel executions can happen. For high concurrency, you might need immutability in your code design, and immutability is one of the cornerstones of functional programming language. One more reason is nowadays the compilers and runtimes are better. You don't have to be a geek to sit and write a functional programming language. You pick any modern language with the features and you're all set. You could just go writing on it. And the last thing that I believe is because Java got it mainstream. You can argue with me later, but if you remember in 2014 when Java introduced Lambdas and Stream API, that is when we started discussing about functional programming all over again. That is because Java still is the king and it has large fan following. So anything that Java does, it gets talked about. So that was start of our functional programming. And why Kotlin? Because it is a modern language. It gives you lots of syntactic sugar. It has cherry-picked some of the best features from the new modern languages and it's giving it to you. One more thing is its interoperability with Java. Yeah, it is modern, concise, and safe. With its two variables of val and var, it makes sure of the safety, type safety. That again, I'll talk about it later. It has, even though it is a modern language, which just was released in 2017, even though it started in 2011, but its first release was in 2017, there are lots of tools and supports by JetBrains. There is like IDE, IntelliJ IDE. It works on Eclipse as well. And since Google made it one of the first-class languages for Android developers, Kotlin has been seeing its popularity raise. It has a very simple learning curve. Since the first time when I was asking what is Kotlin, I started writing a program. It took me hardly 2 hours to get started. But then it really is very easy for you to learn now that you guys know all the other programming languages. And it has been slowly raising up in the GitHub ranks. Now it is currently 15. It is in most of the statistics. Kotlin is said least disliked or most popular, and even in 2019 and 2019, it was one of the 4 languages which developers wanted to learn. Then yes, of course, lots of apps on Google are now written in Kotlin. There are multiple apps which were written in Java, which have gotten converted into Kotlin. So these should be enough reasons for us to give Kotlin some face. Next, what and why are done, I will tell about how you can go about using the Kotlin. Yeah, in how, I'm going to introduce some of the functional programming concepts that I like, and I'll be showing how it is written in Kotlin. So Lambdas. Essentially, Lambdas are anonymous functions in any programming language, but in Kotlin, they're not. In Kotlin, there's also anonymous functions as well. So in Kotlin, Lambdas are your ad hoc functions, which way you can write whenever you want. And Kotlin gives, in Java, Lambdas were introduced in Java 8, but Kotlin was the first programming language which made it available for the Android developers. It also has very powerful Lambda features, not just the simple thing that we were working on Java, but then in Kotlin, it gives the compiler takes care of Kotlin as a first-class feature. And most of the Android developers have been using it and have been very happy about it. here I have the variable double gets the value of the lambda, where I'm gonna take an integer, multiply it by 2, and give it a code of block into curly braces and passed as an expression is lambda in Kotlin. That is what is happening here. If the same thing in Kotlin as anonymous functions would have been a named function double, which takes an integer and returns integer. But with lambda, you could just simply put your code into the curly braces. And most of the times, lambdas take single parameters. So Kotlin allows you to use the keyword it. The compiler is smart enough to understand the signature of it at a later time. You could just go ahead and do it into 2 and it will still understand. So when I call double 2, I get my answer here. Next feature is the higher order function. So higher order function is nothing but a function taking a function as a parameter and or returning the function is higher order function basically. Lambdas are also part of higher order functions. If you see here, I have defined a higher order function calc, which takes 2 integer values, and it also takes a parameter function, which is called operation. It returns the operation, which is like the result of whatever operation that happens within that, whatever result of that function, operation function. I'm then declaring some function which is similar to the operation function that I've already defined. Why I'm doing this is in Kotlin you can pass a function as a parameter to another higher order function in 2 ways. One is by passing an existing function, or you could write a lambda function and pass it on. In for my variable sum, I'm passing the existing function. To pass that, I use this double colon. In Kotlin, the double colon would reference the function by its name, passing 3, 4 in the sum. Then, in the next way, I'm passing the 2 integers, and then I'm passing the lambda for the calc higher order function. My result would be 7 and 12. Here in this higher order function, you saw the function taking a function as its parameter. Now we'll see a higher order function returning a function. So here I have defined a higher order function operation, which actually returns a function. Then I'm defining a square function, which is similar or which has the same signature as operation. In my main function method, when the variable function actually gets the result of operation, which is nothing but the square function. So now when I call a function as function func with 2, it's actually executing the square. You see, I hope I'm not confusing. So when I call func2, it is function has already got the square function as its value, and when I pass 2 into it, it is executing the square function and giving me the value as 4. Kotlin language as such doesn't has all the things necessary for giving the higher order function, but because of its interoperability, it makes use of Java collections hugely. So the building blocks of these higher order functions are your filter, map, and for each. So yeah, Kotlin can make use of all of these. I am using a lambda. I've used multiple lambdas in here. Yeah, the next feature, and one of my favorite features, is closure. So what is closure? Closure is something which you'll get mainly in functional programming itself, which stores your state of the function. wherever. So let's see the program to understand it much better. I have my closure maker function, which returns nothing. Unit is equivalent to void in Java. It takes a variable num, which is to 0, and then it keeps returning a println statement where I'm incrementing the num. In my main function, I make instance of the closure maker, my counter and my counter 1. If you see, I call my counter 4 times, then I call my counter 2 times, and again and my counter 1 once. The result here is the first time it is like first time my counter 1 has the variable num. It has the reference to the variable num, and it keeps incrementing it as I keep calling the instance again and again. While I call my counter 2 closure, my counter 2 has a different variable reference for num, and it starts from 0 and 1. But remember, when I come back and call my counter 1 closure instance, it retains the state of this function. So it still has the 3 stored in it. So when it gets plus, I get my result as 4. So this is very important where you want the state to be retained. The cases, multiple cases where you will be requiring it, just tell it in. Yeah, the next feature are the extension functions. So Kotlin allows you to extend any function type so that you will be able to make use of new functionalities without inheriting the class. So here I'm extending an function swap to the mutable list, to the receiver mutable list. And when I use the swap on the mutable list instance, I'll be able to easily use it even without inheriting this from a different class. So now my ABC's value will be, I'm swapping the 0th and the second location, 3, 2, 1. Next features are composition and currying. Kotlin provides partial functional programming. It in its main libraries, it doesn't have everything to do all of these things, but there are the libraries available outside. If you see the org functional, if you import them, you'll be able to do this composition and currying. So what is composition? It is like composing by, as the name says, it is adding 2 functions and 2 or more functions and making a new function. In my program here, I have a function add 5 where I've given a lambda where my integer plus 5 is the output, and I have multiply by 2. I'm doing my integer into 2. Then I'm creating a new function whose value I'm giving it to the variable multiply by 2 and add 5. How I'm creating it is I'm gonna add the second function, use the compose keyword and multiply by 2. So the output of the first function, which is multiply by 2, is given as the input to the second function, add 5. Finally, now I can simply call multiply by 2 and add 5, and I can pass my value there. That would be like I have 2 things and I have apples and mangoes. I'm making a fruit salad out there. Yeah. While currying is total opposite to composition, where if you have a function that takes 2 or more parameters, you will split it into functions that will take single parameter every time. For instance, I have my variable, I have my lambda function where some 2 ints will be taking 2 integers and giving me the sum of it. But instead of letting it take 2 integers, I want it to be curried and take single individual parameters and then give me the same result that it would do. Yeah, so the result for the above. here, if you do sum to int, imagine I have a sum to int function, and then I give 2 parameters. I will only be able to pass them as 2, 4. I won't be able to do the same sum as 2 close braces and 4. It will throw me an invalid error. But the same can be curried. I'm doing sum to ints dot curried, and then I'm able to make use of my new function curried, or the new function value, which is, yeah, the result will still be same. Okay, I think because I was very worried I would talk a lot of things, I just cut down everything to keep it short, and this is all kind of I had. I can talk about more controversies about the Kotlin thing, but maybe I think that should be enough to what I spoke. I'll just go to my conclusion and I'll let you guys ask me some questions. Yeah. Okay. Sorry. I already reached my conclusion. So all I wanted to say was functional programming is a journey. But then once you get to know it, see it, and see how easily you could make use of it in your programming language, that's when you start getting comfortable with it and see its advantages of using it in your programming language. And then yeah, you'll stick to it. So Kotlin for me made learning functional programming easier. I was able to write all of this code very simply. As I kept reading, I was able to understand it. So yes, and even though I'm a big Java fan, Java, owing to its massiveness and 25 decades of code attached, it's not that easy for it to take all the new features and implement it. But then when I realized that I could do both Kotlin and Java together, that in conjunction, that really made me happy. And I've been using them in my external projects to see how Kotlin would actually work. So yeah, so to each his own programming language, but I would really urge you guys to go give Kotlin and functional programming a chance. Take a look at it. If you like it, we could go and contribute to Kotlin org. I mean, in GitHub, Kotlin is there. Could contribute to the by the PRs, and you could build this new language the better way that you want. So yeah, I had only so much. Thank you.
That was really interesting. We've got some questions actually on the stream. So let me ask you the first one. So in your opinion, what was the best or a really good resource to learn Kotlin? Is there any course that you'd recommend?
The course or the materials that Kotlin org is made available, including the Kotlin cons, they are very, very good. I didn't have to go out and read anything other than what Kotlin cons had. Or sorry, I do have certain links that I'll be sharing where I was able to immediately write the programs for whatever I was learning and check on it. But otherwise, yes, I was following Harry, his presentations everywhere. So these were what helped me in Kotlin.
Yeah, if you could share those in the Slack, that would be fantastic.
Yes, I'll do that.
Great. And we had here another question. So they wanted to know, we got an anonymous person asking if they wanted to know if you'd had the chance to compare Kotlin and Groovy in terms of performance at all.
Oh, no, sorry.
No, okay, no worries. Absolutely fine. So there's another question here asking, in a few cases, Kotlin works faster than Java, especially performing incremental builds, but Java is still supreme when it comes to clean building. Is it still supreme?
Yes, it is true. But then in the latest Kotlin 1.3.70 that they did release in Jan 2020, they have tried to fix this problem. They've tried to bring down the build time. properly, because the community is aware of certain things run very quickly while the other doesn't. Like like the engineer said, Java, it is clean, but Kotlin, it still needs work. But the improvement of the work is still going on.
Okay, great, thank you. And then we've got another question saying, so you said in your presentation how Kotlin doesn't offer a complete functional programming, instead it offers partial. Is that a disadvantage to Kotlin? Does that make any difference? How did you find that?
No, it doesn't. That's because we have these extra libraries which work absolutely fine as if they are part of Kotlin. So you are not disadvantaged at all. I didn't see any performance lag as well. It is as simple as you using the third-party libraries in Java. So it's all fine.
Okay, great. And you said you moved from, so you were originally a Java programmer and then you started learning Kotlin. What do you think is the hardest part about learning Kotlin? We've said about all the ease of being able to move between Java and Kotlin and use them together. What's the hardest part?
The hardest part is bringing it back to my work. I'm just learning Kotlin outside as my interest applications. It's because I'm a Java developer, I could never even imagine bringing Kotlin into my work. That is hardest for me. But other than that, yeah, maybe I'm curated to just work along the applications that I've read about it, and I've not seen its actual use in the development. So maybe that's why I haven't hit my hardest yet.
Yep, no worries. And we have another question, which is, as Kotlin is still in improvement mode, we cannot just move in production from Java to Kotlin. Your thoughts?
Yes, absolutely. You cannot move, even though multiple companies like Netflix, Twitter, and Uber have been moving parts of their module from Java to Kotlin. They have had both advantage and disadvantage. We don't get to hear all that. But then unless you're sure, unless you have fully working Kotlin developers in your team and your project is small to begin with, you shouldn't simply jump in and bring your complete Java production into to Kotlin. You could just start off in bits and pieces. That would be the way to go, like seeing all the other companies as well.
Mm-hmm. We got a few people asking for your Twitter handle. What's your Twitter handle?
Sorry, my Twitter handle?
Yep.
Yeah, it is JSHREESK.
Cool. And if you could post that on the Slack afterwards, that would be great.
Yes.
And then one last question before you go. Is Kotlin good for creating microservices?
The Kotlin native that I spoke about, there is talk and research going on building, using it for creating microservices. But I personally haven't tested, so maybe I'm not the right person to answer that question. But I'll get back.
Okay, yeah, absolutely. You can post in the Slack later on about that if you'd like to. Fantastic. Thank you so much, Jayashree. And for everyone who I haven't answered their questions, please post them in our Slack channel. Jay will be around afterwards to answer all of them. But thank you so much for presenting such an interesting talk. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Grace.
Thanks very much.
Bye.
No worries. Thank you.